Hey friends, I hope you're doing well. I want to talk about Jimi Hendrix and Neil Young at Woodstock today. I was looking around Thrasher's Wheat. It's a great website with just all kinds of cool Neil Young info about it. Everything from his gear, his guitar and his amps and all of that stuff, to old interviews. Just a really, really great resource. A lot of people sit back and chill out to Netflix. I go through Thrasher's Wheat. So I'm going through there, and I come across this story from a 1979 interview with Mary Turner did. Mary Turner is this legendary radio host, disc jockey from Southern California. She had a show called Off the Record. They were in Thrasher's Wheat. They called it On the Record. I think that's wrong. I'm 99% sure it was Off the Record was the name of it. But she ended up syndicated throughout the U.S. I remember listening to her when I was a kid on Q95. Great interviews with, rock and roll legends. And she would ask a question, and she would pause and let them talk. And if you've watched my interviews, you know how much I appreciate that. But she's interviewing Neil Young, and she asked him, what do you remember about Woodstock? And this is Neil's reply. Neil says, one of the things I remember about Woodstock was trying to get there to play. As it turns out, the charter plane I was on with Jimi Hendrix flew into the wrong airport. We were supposed to be picked up by a helicopter. The roads were jammed and there was nobody at the airport, so we had no way to get to the concert. So we're standing at the airport with Melvin Belly, an attorney, trying to figure out what to do. And Melvin steals this pickup truck parked at the airport. The attorney steals a pickup truck. So it's the three of us in the stolen pickup truck trying to get to the Woodstock concert to play. Jimi Hendrix, Melvin, and me. That's what I really remember about Woodstock. That's Neil Young on Off the Record in 1979 being interviewed by Mary Turner. Now, the things that come to my mind about that is he says the roads were jammed and there was no way to get in there. So I immediately wonder how a pickup truck got into Woodstock, even a stolen pickup truck. So I'm assuming since they flew into the wrong airport, they drove to the right airport and then flew in on the helicopter. I don't know that, but that's what I'm assuming. And also, I've heard interviews with, I can remember a particular interview, but I believe is a video, but I couldn't find it, of Jimi Hendrix talking about flying into the helicopter into Woodstock, getting ready to play. And I remember him talking about, feeling isolated, like him and his friends were out on this island and they had this view of life. This 60s thing that they're trying to, they're this way of living that they're imagining, and whatever this counterculture thing is, they thought of it as being an isolated thing. But when he flies into Woodstock, he sees 500,000 people out there and realized, wow, there's a lot of us. He says the first time he realized that there was just a lot of people in this counterculture moment. And he said the sad part was that the people on the advertising and the marketing people on Madison Avenue or Fifth Avenue or whatever saw that also, and they were able to co-opt it, and that was that. I remember the interview, him saying that, and he's saying he's in a helicopter. So that makes me think he went to the other airport he was supposed to be originally and flew in on the helicopter. The other thing that comes to my mind, imagine the amazing, interesting doesn't even begin to cover it, but imagine the life that you've had when you're telling a story about flying in a helicopter into Woodstock and you don't even mention that Jimi Hendrix is sitting next to you in that helicopter. Like, imagine if that would just escape your mind in any moment, and that explains the crazy, interesting life that Neil Young has had. In 1992, Neil Young inducted Jimi Hendrix into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he said that Jimi Hendrix threw a Molotov cocktail onto rock and roll, which is a very apt description. I believe that Neil, for a period, on his peace sign guitar strap, had a Hendrix button, and there's a few different quotes I found out there of him saying that he thought that Jimi Hendrix was the greatest electric guitar player of all time. I don't know. I love Hendrix. I love Neil Young's music. I can see the overlap. Neil's freak out guitar, his crazy exploding Fender Tweed amp sound, which I love, is you could draw a direct line to Jimi Hendrix with that. It's interesting how Hendrix chose to use fuzz to go into this territory that Neil just simply used a Tweed Deluxe, cranked up, and the transformer just about to fail. And the things on Thrasher's Wheat of his gear is pretty great. The fans blowing on it on his Deluxe Live, trying to keep it from overheating and all that. So if Jimi Hendrix were still alive today, I'm curious what changes we would have seen throughout his career as far as his playing goes. I've thought about it a few times, since we have this concise picture of what Jimi Hendrix guitar playing was, since it was just this short span. What would it be like if he was making records in the 80s? I mean, I wish we had the opportunity to witness all of this, but would he have moved on and played Jackson guitars, with the reverse headstock? And I'm thinking maybe he would have, since he is such a gifted player. He probably would have moved into more complicated music that might have been less, maybe it would have been interesting, equally as interesting, but maybe a lot of us wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. Maybe like Jeff Beck, where he followed his muse to a lot of more complicated, out there stuff, and a lot of people didn't dig it, and a lot of people loved it, But maybe, I think Jimi Hendrix might have done that. I don't think he would have continued doing the same thing forever. And at the time, it was so avant-garde and out there. I don't know if he would have been like Neil, where there's this thing that I do, there's this universe that Neil exists in, and I love that universe. But musically, he's gone outside of it, but there's been that core of what he does. And, there's been trans and stuff like that. I'm curious how far along Jimi Hendrix might have moved from where we think about him now. I don't know. Would he even be using those same old amps? Would he be embracing these modern technologies? And I don't know. We'll never know. I love that Neil realizes, and believes that they perfected the amps and all of that stuff got perfected back in the 50s. And that's the stuff that he wants to use to make music, and he does. I love that about Neil. Love that. I wonder if Hendrix would have been the same. And also, one other idea I want to throw out there is these radio shows of Mary Turner. I'm guessing a few of these are probably on YouTube somewhere. I'm going to go look and see. There's probably like random ones. Wouldn't it be great if this amazing archive of interviews with these rock stars in the 70s, if this archive was available like as a RSS feed where you could listen to it just like you listen to a podcast? You could pull up a radio show from the 70s, and she famously interviewed Bruce Springsteen, and I'm going to get the quote wrong, but she famously interviewed Springsteen and asked him, do you really know a pretty little place in Southern California down San Diego way where they play guitar all night and all day, which is a line from Rosalita. She asked him that, and he kind of froze a little bit and laughed, and he loved that she asked him that, and he ended up, I guess, asking her out on a date after that. But all of these interviews would be so great to have and be able to listen to like you listen to a podcast as you go through. I've said this before about the Studs Terkel archive. Just great interviews. Studs Terkel is just one of the best ever. Of all of these people, from Allen Ginsberg to Kerouac to one of the earliest Bob Dylan, interviews. All these jazz greats, just interesting people from around Chicago. John Prine. I've said something before about how it'd be great if that was available, which the Studs Terkel archive is available, but there was no RSS feed the last time I saw it. And I'd just like to have the original uncut episodes and just listen to it while I'm going about my day, like I listen to any other audio podcast. And I don't believe that was the case. Maybe on Off the Record with Mary Turner, they would have to take out the music to play, songs. You could take that out because copyright reasons and all of that. But there's so many shows like that I would love to hear, be able to just go back through like that. So do you remember listening to Off the Record? Was it syndicated in your town? Were there any other shows that you really loved back in the 70s or 80s or whenever that had similar stuff that you'd love to be able to listen to today? Tell me about it down below. And check this out right here. This is my buddy Roscoe telling a great, great Neil Young story about going out to his ranch. And I'll catch you down the road. Much love to you.